Welcome to We in Lewes, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the remarkable, creative, and energetic people who live in Lewes and are helping our community forge a collective soul as appealing as it is unique. These are their stories and their words. They are the We in Lewes. I'm Kevin McGinnis. We're thrilled we're being joined today by Chanta Howard Wilkinson, an attorney, founder of her own consulting firm, vice chair of the Delaware Community Foundation, and president of the Board of Commissioners of the Lewes Public Library. An attorney, Chanta also served as the Deputy Attorney General of the state of New Jersey and was the Associate Director of EEO and Affirmative Action at Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn. Today's episode is brought to you by the Lewes Chamber of Commerce, which was organized in April 1975 to advance the general welfare and prosperity of the Lewes area so that its citizens in all areas of its business community can prosper. Betsy Reamer and her team have certainly accomplished that. Over the last couple of years, membership has more than doubled, and the number of events they sponsor include the Lewes British Motor Car Show, the Lewes Garden Tour, the Lewes Tulip Celebration, so many others, including this podcast. If you're visiting, the Chamber's office at the historic Fisher Martin House at 120 Kings Highway basically doubles as a visitor center. Chanta, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to be in conversation with you this morning.
One of the best-known secrets of Lewes is the hidden gem that is the Lewes Public Library. How is it possible that a small town like Lewes has a library as grand, diverse, and multidimensional as ours?
The short answer is the people that commit their time and their talent in support of the library. And when I say people, I mean the people starting from the board. I have had the pleasure of serving on the board for several years. And in my current role as board president, it has truly been an honor. When I say that we have a dream team board, true nod to the basketball dream team. But when I say we have a dream team, we have put together a group of volunteers who serve in the capacity as Board of Commissioners who are stellar. They bring their expertise, they bring their professional and personal business skills and knowledge, they bring their creativity, and most of all, they bring their commitment and dedication to the library and, more importantly, to our patrons. We have had a long history at the Lewes Public Library of having stellar boards. When I first joined the board several years ago, I was just amazed that I was even asked to be a part of such a wonderful organization. And then when I sat and met with the board members and sat during one of our first meetings, I realized how impeccable and how talented the board was. And I really saw the true commitment to the library. In addition to our wonderful board, our staff, I cannot say enough wonderful things about our staff. They are truly amazing. Every chance that I get to publicly thank them, I take the chance to do so because the library is the gem that it is because of those individuals who are dedicated, who are far the hardest working group of individuals that I have ever had the chance to work alongside. When I talk about commitment, they demonstrate a true commitment to the mission and the vision of the library, as does the board. We know our governance role, and we know our role is to do things in support of and in furtherance of the library's mission and vision, but it is the staff that carries that out. I often tell the story about during COVID, how I saw our staff, just like so many other organizations, how we had to pivot. We went from open doors, an open welcome community center, to being closed. And how are we going to still meet the needs of our community? And our staff didn't blink. They didn't hesitate. They immediately jumped into action and created things that 5 years prior, we wouldn't have imagined that we would have been able to do many of the things that we did. And it was in huge part due to the effort of our staff. And then lastly, when I say people, it's the volunteers. We have over 100 volunteers, and our volunteers play many roles in the library. And we would not be who we are, and we would not be able to provide the services that we do were it not for the staff and the volunteers.
The library is very diverse when you walk inside and see the different opportunities. Mm-hmm. It's not just grabbing a book or returning a book or anything like that. You have a special room dedicated to children, another for teens, a tech area, even a special writer's library.
Yes, and all of that was intentional by design. When I first joined the board, we were still in the old building, but I came on the board towards the latter end of the design phase of what is now the building, the new building. But when I first saw the Lewes community in action was during that phase. Again, I came in on the latter end, so I was not truly involved in the design phase, but I saw what the committee did. And the design committee was comprised of not just board members, but staff, members of the community, members who had a design and architectural background, members of the community who had a construction background. And a lot of input was received from not only the staff, but also from the community when designing it. So when I speak of the intentionality behind it, it was to ensure that there is a space for children and that there is a space for teens and a space that teens would want to go to, and that there would be a space. I think often the library is always thinking 5, 10, 15 years ahead. So thinking where could not only can we provide a study room for students and tutors, but also a space for entrepreneurs to come to work, or for individuals who work remotely to come in and to be able to do their work. When I say, and I'll say the word intentional one last time, but when I say it was intentional, it was. I remember being in meetings where discussions about furniture selections and the thought and the time that went into that. Every chair that you see in there, every table, every piece of equipment that you see, whether it's in the children's wing, whether it's in our, elegant fireplace that we have in the back, all of that there was so much thought that went into that to make sure it was comfortable for people, that it was welcoming. I remember discussions about the family restrooms, because again, we had people who were mothers, we had family members who were giving input. So there were discussions like, in your children's wing, make sure you have a family restroom so parents can use that restroom with their children. And it was just all of these things that when we look at the final product now, it's a wonderful product that I hope continues to meet all the needs. And it was built and designed in a way that we can make changes as the community continues to grow.
The library is also a center with programming on almost every imaginable topic. I looked recently and there were presentations on tax preparation. There was a place to play mahjong. There was a Dungeons and Dragons group that was meeting. There's preschool story time and a modern stoa where gentlemen are getting together to discuss stoicism. And I think that was just 1 week.
That is just 1 week at the library. I have a fun fact for you. In 2023, we hosted 808 in-person, virtual, or hybrid events and programs, which were attended by 14,658 people. That was last year alone. And I love that you referenced the word community center, because that's exactly how we view it. In 2017, and I was on the board at that time, we started to take a moment and we sat back and we were like, how is our library really being used? And how can we best serve this community? And we thought about the ever-evolving needs of the community. Think about in 2017, the growth that we saw then. And we realized that it was time to look at our vision, to look at our mission, and to see if we needed to revise it. And that's what we did. We revised the vision, we revised the mission, and we changed the language so it could reflect that we are a community center that is open for the exchange of information, the exchange of dialogue, of course, that supports and endorses of love of reading, but a center that provides programming that meets all the needs of the community. Last year alone, we prepared over 600 tax returns for residents. And I should have added the word free. These are all free programs and free services, but over 600 people. And then the services don't just stop there. We have financial courses that community members can take. We also have programs where we have a staff that is so innovative. They're trying to make sure that we're hitting every target area, every age group. So we have programs for children, but we also have programs for their parents. We have some great self-care, caregiver programs for parents that parents of toddlers and infants can partake in. We also have great teen programs, including we're coming up on our teen job fair, which is always a super successful program. In addition to that, we can move into the millennials. We have been focusing on the millennials quite a bit. And every time I look at the age range for millennials, I believe it's like 1980 to 1996, I look at their programs and I'm like, man, I know I'm not a millennial, but I would love to participate in some of their programs. We recently had a sushi rolling class for millennials, a yoga course, which was a yoga and creativity workshop. We have another class or a workshop or a discussion series that we host with the millennials, which is hosted in our Delaware room. I believe it's called Pints and Pages. So, which we get to partner with a lot of the local breweries, which that in and of itself.
Pints and Pages, so you can actually have a discussion at the library while drinking beer?
I believe so.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I believe so.
Well, this could be the second best place in Lewes to drink beer.
So the programs that we have, and even when you expand to some of our other more mature, older age groups, we have an adult coloring class, or adult coloring group. So we have something for everyone.
You also have, I believe, you do readings of plays.
Yes, we do. And we have quite a few that are coming up soon. And I think that's wonderful because that gives us an opportunity to partner with different organizations. And that's something that we pride ourselves on, that we can have different groups that can come in, different creative groups, different Shakespeare groups, and different groups across the state, and sometimes even outside of the borders of the state. One thing that I wanted to highlight that many people may not know is, as most people have gathered so far, we are far more than books. You know, books is what may get people in the door. And I would venture to say the average person that enters the library on a daily basis is not taking out a book. They're coming for our programs, they're coming for our services. And one of the services that I wanted to take a moment to highlight is that we actually have a social worker on site 2 days a week. And a social worker is there to assist community members in things, whether it's from a housing perspective, heating assistance and rent assistance, whether it's clothing and hygiene products, whether it's to help provide health and mental health services. We do have in the back, we have a telehealth kiosk that patrons can make appointments for to get the necessary mental and physical health services that they need. Our social worker is also there to help people with childcare issues, as well as higher education, computer skills training, and immigration matters and record expungement. So there's so much that this social worker does. And we want to be able to ensure that we're always able to provide these services.
How is the library funded?
Yes. So the library must raise over 44% of its operating funds. So that's a significant amount. We do receive funding from the county as well as the state. And then we are so grateful to receive funding. In addition to the generous funding from the county and the state, we're grateful to receive funding from our friends of the Lewes Public Library. Actually, the Friends Group is the third largest private funder of the library. They will provide $75,000 to the library this year from their membership campaign, shop operations, and specialty book sales. So 44% so that leaves us with a 44% difference. And with that, we get the rest of our funding from our fundraising efforts, whether that includes grant applications, personal gifts, donations, fees, and our wonderful and fun fundraising initiatives like Loopin' for the Library and 31 Chances, which will be starting next month, the month of March. Because we have so many wonderful programs that I am unable to highlight all of them this morning, please, for everyone, if you have not already, please subscribe to our monthly newsletter. It's chock full of information, as well as going onto our website. And for those listeners who are active on social media, if you can follow the library on Instagram as well as its Facebook pages, and you will see all of the programs and materials that we provide.
You also have major construction plans underway, as I understand. You're building a pavilion, a performing arts pavilion, and you're doing all sorts of hardscaping and landscaping around the railroad caboose that's already in place. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And we are super excited for both projects. I'll talk about the pavilion for a bit. The pavilion, we will be breaking ground either late spring or early summer. And that will be an outdoor meeting space, as well as a space to host programs, a space for community partners to host programs, and an opportunity for collaborative events. So we're really excited about that. And I look at the need for the pavilion as just an indication of how the area is growing, and that we want to make sure that as the area grows, we're able to provide a space. We're able to provide these programs that are so necessary. When thinking about the growth of the area, I wanted to highlight that last month alone, we issued 354 new library cards in 1 month. We're very grateful for the train and the railroad station, and that project was another example of the community and a collaborative effort. And there were so many players that were involved in that. And we are so grateful for everyone who was able to get that project underway, who stayed committed to that project. And it is beautiful.
What led you to getting involved so intimately with the library?
This is probably going to be a corny response, but it's a true response. But I have always been a person that has found a home and found a place in the library. I have vivid memories of being a child and being that child that participated. I grew up in New Jersey, and when we were living in East Orange, New Jersey, I participated in our summer reading challenge. And I always prided myself on reading the most books in the summer and getting the stickers and all of the other prizes that came along with that recognition. So libraries have always been a special place. I think back to middle school, going to the library. That's what kids did back in the 90s and the 80s. You would go to the library after school. And I remember being in college and needing volunteer hours and going back to my local town library to get my volunteer hours there. And then going back to that same library when studying for the bar exam and utilizing the quiet room. And I was there so much. I had like 3 study locations: Barnes and Nobles, my mom's house, and the library. And the librarians would see me so much that they would cheer me on while studying for the bar, and especially those that remembered me from high school and beyond. So when we moved to the area, as one would do if they're a civic-minded person, or anyone would do, you get your driver's license when you move to a new state, and then you get your library card. And that's what I did. I got my driver's license and I got my library card, and we were still in the old building at that time, and the building just felt so warm and comforting and inviting to me that I got involved. And it was a place that when I became a new mom, that's where you went when you were a new mom and you were staying at home. And I looked forward to Tuesday story times with Miss Maureen. And I thought back when I was prepping for today and thinking about what I would discuss, I thought back to the fact that when we were still in the old building and I was a new mom, relatively new to the area at that time, and some of the first women that I met, Jill DiPaolo, who is now our library director, Jen Noonan, who is now our amazing children's program coordinator and children's librarian. We were there at the library together. In addition, Miss Maureen, who I referenced, who is now one of our board members. So it just was such a warm and comforting and welcoming space for me. So when the opportunity came years later to serve on the board, I happily submitted my application. And I was very, very grateful when I was selected to be one of the commissioners. And it's been a great place. I was, while prepping, looking through old pictures, and I realized that I was pregnant with my second child during the groundbreaking of the building. And I just think back at all of the memories and my children going through that library and being a part of the programs and still being a part of the programs. And my mom, she participates in the program. So the library is just libraries have always been such a special place to me, and they're very near and dear to me. And I just think the Lewes Public Library is as good as it gets.
I believe you are also the vice chair of the board of the Delaware Community Foundation.
Yes. Going back to when we first moved to the area, I believe it was around 2012 and 2013, I read in the Cape Gazette that there was a new organization starting, that the Delaware Community Foundation was going to have a group called Next Generation South. And it was going to be a group for young professionals who were philanthropic in their endeavors, and it was going to be a great giving circle of the Delaware Community Foundation. So I saw the advertisement. I immediately went to the first meeting. I was excited, and it was great for me because at this point we probably had been living here for about a year or two. So I was meeting people, and I was excited to be able to expand my circle to meet other professionals. I will use the word young at that point, but we have all since aged out. But to meet other young professionals in the area. So that was how I really got involved with DCF, with the Delaware Community Foundation, as well as I was a part of the Fund for Women. And I really saw just how remarkable the organization was and how impactful it is in the work that it does.
Did the foundation just buy some property here in Lewes?
Yes. And that is something that we are super excited about. We now are the owners of a property on Savannah Road. It is a property that we purchased from the Lewes Historical Society. And the intent is to have a bigger presence in Sussex County and to be here in Lewes. And what that building and what that location will mean for Sussex County, for the state, and for Lewes is tremendous. It will be an opportunity. The vision for the building is for it to be a place where potential donors can walk in and find out more about what DCF does and the type of nonprofits that we support. It will be a place for meetings and for discussions, and it will be a place for events that DCF can hold, and an opportunity for a further exchange of ideas within the nonprofit community and beyond. So we are extremely excited about that. DCF is just an organization that is so impactful, and its reach goes beyond Sussex County, but it's great that we'll be able to have an emphasis. And we've already had a home in Sussex County in Georgetown, but we'll be moving that home to Lewes, so we'll have an even greater presence in Lewes, which will in turn allow us to have an even greater impact across the state and in Sussex County and Kent County and beyond. In the past year, the Delaware Community Foundation invested over $30 million in the community, and this was done via 2,076 grants. The community also helped over 600 fund holders give charitably and awarded over $400,000 in scholarship funds to 142 students. So I am so proud of the work that DCF does. It's needed in this state. It's doing great work in this state, and it will be great to do even more work in Sussex County, and to have this, and having a home and a presence in Lewes will do just that.
What inspired you to become a lawyer, other than perhaps a fascination with accumulating debt?
Because the debt is real, for sure. This is going to be another one of my corny Chanta answers. It goes along with my answers to the library. But to be honest, Claire Huxtable was my inspiration. I, as a lot of people, watched The Cosby Show, and I would mainly watch Claire Huxtable. And I was like, seeing that representation on TV as a young African-American girl, and seeing this beautiful woman who was an attorney and who was a mother and who was a wife, it made me question, like, oh, an attorney, that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. So as I got older, family members would be like, well, you like to read? Check. You like to write? Check. And most importantly, you like to talk. So family members were like, I think you would be a great attorney. Go forth and prosper. And I remember looking at, my mom came across like my middle school yearbook a few years back as she was moving, because she relocated to the area a few years back. And she came across my middle school yearbook. And in the yearbook, I had in two different spaces, two different friends saying, so this is my 8th grade yearbook. When you become that lawyer, and in 20 years or so, you'll help us get out of speeding tickets. And then in high school, in my high school yearbook, people referenced me being a lawyer. So I clearly talked about it for quite a bit. So it was just one of those things. I think, so the childhood inspiration, and then as I got older and realized what it is that lawyers do and the impact that they could do, that's when I really realized, like, yes, this is the career that I thought I was chasing is in fact what I actually want to do.
There are a lot of lawyers. There are not a lot of lawyers who work or have worked in the Attorney General's office of any state. How did you get there?
Oh, and that was a great experience. So I knew litigation. I was already on the litigation track in private practice, and I knew I wanted to, I was exploring different things to do, and an opportunity came up at the Attorney General's office. And I remember going for the interview and saying like, oh, this would be a great place to work. I had friends who were already deputy attorney generals who were already at the AG's office, so I would hear about their experiences. And I was fortunate to be selected or to be placed at the Division of Gaming Enforcement. And that was to regulate the Atlantic City casino industry. So as someone...
Was this before the whole sports betting came up?
Yes, okay. Yes. So this was, and I was there from 2005 to 2009. So this is when, at the time, Atlantic City either had 12 or 13 casinos, I believe. So it was a very exciting time. And it was such a different aspect of the law. Like, as someone who grew up in New Jersey, I knew about Atlantic City. I had visited as a child. But as someone from a legal perspective, I didn't know much about casino law. I didn't know that it was its own subset. I knew there was a Casino Control Commission, but I didn't know, about the Casino Control Act and all of the laws that apply to casinos. So it was a great opportunity to jump into a completely different practice of law, to learn about a completely different industry, and to just be immersed in that world. So it was a fun experience. I worked in the employee licensing section. So in that section, we governed essentially all the employees. The New Jersey State Police, they actually have jurisdiction over Atlantic City and the casino, over the casinos. So we worked closely with the New Jersey State Police. And during my tenure at the AG's office, with about 2 years into my role as a Deputy Attorney General, I became our division's EEO affirmative action coordinator. And, with the state, once one person leaves, if you're there, they'll say, guess what? Now you're going to be doing this role. And I was so happy that I was assigned to become our EEO affirmative action coordinator for the division, because then that introduced me into something that I ultimately found to be something that I was very passionate about. So while working in conjunction as a deputy attorney general, I got to help, do programming, EEO affirmative action program, and diversity, equity, inclusion programs and celebrations. I also got to work with our trainers and do trainings and go down to the state police offices in both Trenton and Atlantic City and do trainings there. So it introduced me into an aspect of the law that I found to be something that I was very passionate about.
Today, your practice is focused a lot on employment issues and working with the workforce, trying to get it. I wanted to ask you this question, if I could.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference with the issues you're dealing with in your area of expertise today versus the issues that were being dealt with 20, 25 years ago? Because I think it's fair to say that employees coming into the workforce today are different than the employees coming into the workforce
and they have
25 years
different
ago.
Expectations. Yes, for sure. And that's a great question. And I would say in my work, my consulting work, I get to work with a lot of great organizations, and it's been such a great experience to just listen to their employees. That's the best part, is when I get to listen to their employees. I don't practice law in the state. I am admitted in DC and New Jersey, but not here in Delaware. So the majority of my work is in the consulting space, whether it's diversity, equity, inclusion consulting or nonprofit board governance or other matters. But what I would see with employees is that, again, the expectations, and a lot of it is generational. And, when we look at the workforce, you can have some organizations where you can have 4 or 5 generations in one building, or working remotely, however they are stationed. You can have Gen Z, Gen X, millennials. You can have baby boomers. Sometimes you can still have individuals who are in the silent generation. And then you have the alphas, which is the youngest generation, can be coming into the intern. Many of them are now at an age range where they can be interning at some of these organizations. And each generation I don't want to say they're motivated by different things, but I think there have been studies that if you take my generation, which is Generation X, if you probably were to list our priorities, especially like 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, Money would probably be one of the higher priorities. Job satisfaction would be up there too, but I think money is probably one of the higher priorities. When you look at some of the other generations, like your Gen Z and your millennials, especially your Gen Zs, they're looking at work-life balance is very much a big one. Organizations that are committed to having inclusive and welcoming environments. A big one for some of the newer generations is having a personal connection to the business and having an alignment with the vision, the business's mission and vision. So many of the younger generations, if they don't feel that those components are being met, they will leave and will go to another employer. Whereas take my mother's generation, the baby boomers and beyond, my mother she was a teacher, and she retired. She worked at 2 schools her entire career and retired after 35 plus years of teaching. One were to look at my resume, and I'm not a millennial or a Gen Z, but a Gen X, and the different amount of organizations that I have worked for, it's not 10 or anything like that, but it's more than 2 in comparison to my mother. And I'm quite sure if I were to look at the resumes of some of my younger cousins and different individuals and mentees, their resumes, they've been probably at way more organizations than I was at that same stage in my career. So there's definitely, I would say, different expectations, a different sense of wellness. A lot of I've had plenty of conversations with people who at different phases of their careers look at their job as a means to an end. Like, I have bills to pay, I am collecting a paycheck, and I'm okay. I'm not extremely happy with my job, but I'm okay. And then I know other people of other generations where they couldn't fathom working for a job and collecting a paycheck if they were just okay. They want more. They want a sense of, again, fulfillment or a sense of a connection and passion. They want to have some their purpose and their passion has to align with what the job is doing. So
I bet if your mom was sitting here, she didn't ever think in her first 2 years working at a school that the principal or administrator was interested in her opinions on how they could do things better. I'm just guessing that wasn't an option.
It's completely different. It's completely different. I agree.
I was talking the other day with one of my clients, and they mentioned they have just finishing developing their policy regarding parents attending job interviews with their child. I thought this was a joke. But this is apparently a very prevalent practice.
It's definitely different. It's and I forget there's a different term, and I'm blanking on it right now, but there's a term that describes that practice where the parents are definitely more engaged and involved in their children from college and beyond. And I think in other generations, you got dropped off at college. Your parents wanted to know if they're footing the bill, even if they're not, if you're on scholarships or financial aid, they want to know how you're doing in a general sense, and that you are, your grades are well, and that you're adjusted, and that your anxiety is intact, and that you're settled into college. But there is a difference now with the level of parental involvement with that many parents, not many, but that some parents have with their children once they get to higher education and beyond. And it will be interesting to see 10, 15, 20 years plus down the road what impact that has. Because in some professions, I couldn't imagine in law school, or even in some professions like medicine, or those who are getting their MBAs, and even other professions like construction and different industries, how beneficial it would be for the parents to be, completely involved. It's good that you can have a relationship with your parents and you can go to them for their advice as to how to navigate certain situations as they may arise in the workplace, or situations that may arise as you continue your education and your studies. But there's also a point where, just to get that true experience, some of these things you have to experience them. You can't protect everyone from everything. There are some things that you have to experience because you have to grow.
What brought you to Lewes?
Family and job. My husband not relocated. My husband received a position to work here in Lewes. Prior to that, I must be honest, I didn't know anything about Delaware. So when he said, I'm going to go for an interview in Delaware, and I knew about it because his partner received an offer a year prior. And so I knew the partner was here in Delaware, and I was like, go for the interview. Have fun. I'll see you when you get back. And he gets back, and I was like, oh, God, he seems like he likes this, huh? Okay, I'll go. And I come, and I remember staying on, because this interview, I'm not sure if this is
No, we make it very clear. We recorded Kindle.
Okay,
look at
so
all
then
of our stuff.
I
It's
will
a beautiful,
plug
wonderful
Kindle.
restaurant.
I will plug Kindle at the moment. So I came. It would have been, I don't know if it was the winter. It was either December it had to be 2010, I believe. It could have been 11, but I don't think so. But maybe it was 11. I'm not sure. But came, stayed on 2nd Street. And stayed right there at Hotel Rodney, walked around, came in here with my mom. Did
you meet Matt and become instant friends?
Did not meet Matt, but had a meal. And it was hard to get a table, but my mom and I did not realize that we were coming the night of the Lewes Holiday Parade. So,
wow.
How did we, now living here all these years later, I don't know how we managed to get to eat that night. It was just luck, I guess. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, so I remember vividly staying on 2nd Street, eating here, going to the bake shop to get something to drink and watching the parade and saying, this is a cute, quaint area. This is the little Hallmark movie come to life. So then, as my husband was going back and forth as to, I don't know, he didn't go back and forth as I went back and forth because he immediately was all in. And I said, I think I could live there. I think I could enjoy that area. So we moved down either the following year or that summer and have been here ever since.
And he's a doctor.
Yes. And gastroenterology is his specialty. And he is having a wonderful time at BB. He is a person, when we talk about people whose passion and purpose align with what they do, he is that. I look at someone every day who loves what they do. He is inspirational to me in many ways, but that is part of it because I, again, get to see someone every day who is walking in their purpose and who loves what they do and loves being of service to people.
And were your kids old enough to realize they're making a transition?
They were both born here. My
they're
children
both
are BB
okay.
babies. Yes, okay. They are BB babies. They were born here. So when they, as this is what they know Delaware, they know Southern Delaware, they get back. My son does like to say though that I was pregnant with him while still living in New York and working in Brooklyn. So he still claims that part of it, and he gets back to New York and New Jersey every chance he gets. But he does. Both of the children love the area, so they both were born here.
Well, now that you're here, what do you do for fun?
Read, as anyone who's on a library board would say, but I do love to read. That is one of my favorite pastimes, as well as spending time with family, friends, resting as much as possible, spending time with family and friends, those who live locally, as well as those who come to visit. I'm excited to think about all the visitors that will be coming from April to October, I believe, and taking advantage of all of the wonderful things that Lewes has to offer, from the eateries and the great shops on 2nd Street, as well as the events that come. I recently went to the African American Film Festival. I'm looking forward to the Juneteenth event in June that the city sponsors, as well as when the Jazz Festival comes along. I get in to see shows at Clear Space and exhibits at the Art League and all of the great things. I'm a part of a great book club that sometimes meets at the library, the Sisterhood Book Club. That is something that I enjoy a lot. That has been a wonderful addition to my life and to this area. So I would say those are the things. A lot of it centers around books and just family.
One last question. What is it about Lewes and the community here that allows something like the Lewes Public Library to be such an integral part of the town?
Yes. Great question. And I would think it's, again, the people, whether it's the board, the staff, and the volunteers. And I think what allows the library to be such a major part of the community is that we listen to the community. We try to react and respond to what the community needs. We try to react and respond to the growth of the community. We host listening sessions as we were planning our strategic plan and going through that process. We had focus groups and listening sessions with the community. We are now forming an outreach committee, which will be led by one of our new board members who has been all of our new board members have been great additions to the board. So we have this one particular board member who is leading the charge, and we are so grateful for her to lead the charge for the outreach community. And the goal of that committee, the goal of that committee is to really reach out to the underserved and underrepresented communities to make sure if they're not coming into our door, why not? And what can we do to get them into our services? We want to make sure that we are a library for everyone, that there is something for everyone when they come in that door, that whether it's a program, a book, an author's event, a discussion, a course, a class, a workshop, or just a place to sit and talk, or just a place to sit and meditate and reflect. We want to be that place.
Chanta, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you
for joining us today. This was great fun. For sharing your passion for the library, the Community Foundation, for everything you're involved with, and I think demonstrating the value of being passionate about what you do.
Thank you.
Again, I have yet to meet anyone who isn't surprised at all the library is doing. And a special thanks to today's sponsor, the Lewes Chamber of Commerce. If you're a new business in town or just visiting, pay them a visit. I guarantee you'll agree it was time well spent. If not, we'll be happy to reimburse you the cost of this episode. Finally, thank you for joining us and your kind words of support. We really appreciate your comments and welcome your suggestions. Well, most of them. Our next episode will air later this month. For more information and updates, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at We and Lewes the Podcast. Have a wonderful day, and please, when you can, take a moment, look around, and enjoy the remarkable hamlet called Lewes, which some of us are lucky enough to call home. Till next time, this has been We in Lewes, the podcast.